Welcome, everyone. So in today's lesson, we are going to cover about the topic furniture, right? So it's an advanced lesson, speaking lesson, which will cover part 1, 2 and 3 about furniture. So let's have a look at some of the speaking part 1 questions. Do you have a lot of furniture in your home? So you can say, yes, I have a lot of furniture at my place, and you can name a few, right? So we have wardrobes, we have cupboards, we have beds, right? You can name a few. If not, you can say, not a lot, but yes, I have some furniture at my home and they are very basic ones, right? So you're trying to tell, yes, I do have some furniture, but they are not really big pieces of furniture, but the basic ones that we need for a household. What kind of furniture would you like to buy? So this is asking you what you would like to buy. Not something that you have at the moment, but something that you would want to buy in the near future. I would like to buy more comfortable and classy looking furniture, which will give a very good look to my overall interior, and also a type of furniture in which a lot of stuff can be kept, right? So here you can see the use of word comfortable, classy, right? Interior, which is going to match my interior, right? Interior means your room. Now, say for an example, the paintings and the colors and all the other things, it must match with that. Your pieces of furniture must match with that, okay? Now, can you say furnitures? No, right? Plural form is also furniture. What's your favorite furniture? So, one piece of furniture which is your favorite, okay? Vadipurama kamathiyaka, the one that you like the most. My favorite furniture is the cabinet of my books, right? And work-related documents which I bought recently. It is made out of the best wood and also designed per the room interior, okay? So I would say my favorite piece of furniture is my bed because I also got it designed, right? It's a customized bed and I really love that piece of furniture. So you can bring out whichever piece of furniture that you like the most, right? Now, why have I selected this topic? Because if someone asks you about furniture, all of a sudden you just go blank. You're like, oh, furniture, okay, right? Because we don't really talk about these topics, even though we know about these topics. When we all of a sudden get to talk about it, you might feel uncomfortable, you might get stuck, and that would affect your fluency. So I've picked out furniture because I felt that it would not be a topic that all of you talk about on a daily basis, right? So looking at a typical speaking part 2 card. Now if you can remember part 2, you will get this card to look at it, right? And you will get a paper and a pencil. You get 1 minute to prepare, and if you want, you could make notes. You need to speak 1 to 2 minutes, and who controls the time? The examiner, right? So close upon 2 minutes, or when it's 2 minutes, the examiner will tell you to stop speaking. By the time that happens, you must complete all of these points. So practice is the key, right? You need to keep your timer every time you're doing part 2 in front of you and practice with the time, okay? Am I speaking less than 1 minute? Then you have to improve more, right? Add more information, add more vocabulary, explanation to increase the time. But make sure you're within this task and don't go or deviate too much out of this card, okay? Describe an item of furniture that you use often. You should say what it is, where it is, what it looks like, how or why you use it. So it is an item of furniture. Can I have more than one piece of furniture to describe here? No, it's just one piece of furniture that I'm going to describe about. So, describing about an item of furniture that I use often would be my table. So, my table is usually in my office or my workroom where I do all my work. Now, it is a basic table where you've got a place where you can keep your laptop, and then there are a few shelves so I can leave my books or any important documents on my table. Apart from that, on my table, I also have a pencil holder. Now, my table is brown in color and it is made out of teak. So, it is a customized piece of furniture which my father gave me a few years ago. How and why I use it? So, basically, I use it on a daily basis, because I obviously keep my computer there, and if I have online classes, I would definitely want to sit there and use it. Apart from that, I also do my marking. So I need to use my table when I need to keep all the papers and start marking. So apart from that, I use it sometimes when I want to sit down, make myself notes, if I want to make a shopping list. Sometimes I also get my son to come and sit down there and do his homework. So I use it for these kind of reasons. Okay? Then you තමන්ට ගැලපෙන විදියට තමන්ට මේක වෙනස් කරගන්න පුළුවන්. You can talk about a piece of furniture that you use often. It could be your bed, it could be your table, it could be a chair, it could be your book rack, whatever you use, right? So, let's have a look at this. A piece of furniture I use often is a small folding chair. It's made of green canvas, and because it is a folding chair, I can easily put it away and out of sight when I'm not using it. It is convenient for me because my room is small and I don't have space for a lot of furniture. I also don't like clutter. Clutter? What do you mean by clutter? When everything is together. නිකන් ගොඩාක් එකලඟ බඩු දාලා තියෙනකොට clutter. හැරෙන්නවත් ඉඩක් නැහැ, that kind of feeling, right? So by putting the chair away after I use it, my room looks a little tidier. That means much more neater. My bedroom is the only place in the house that I have to myself. So I spend a lot of time there, either studying or working. Nice. Some people call this either or, and then another one like that would be neither. Some people call it neither. It goes with no. Okay, so you can think about using this kind of vocabulary or words, right? I am in my last year of university, so I have many writing assignments and individual research to do. I do most of my writing on my laptop, so it's convenient and comfortable to sit in my chair with my computer on my lap, either typing or reading or both. As I said, the chair is made of canvas and the frame is aluminium, so it's lightweight and easy to put away and take out whenever I need it. Surprisingly, it is very comfortable for a folding chair, and that was the most important factor for me when I chose it. It was also inexpensive. It's not a very beautiful piece of furniture, but it has definitely been one of the most practical things I've bought in a long time. So you can see how well the answer has been put through together, covering the main points in your card, right? What it is, where it is, what it looks like. right? And why you use it. The student has covered all the points, right? Maybe not in the exact order, but nicely signposted and then covered all the subtopics in the speaking card. So that is exactly what we are looking at when you're doing your speaking test, right? Not just go here and there and just talk a bit and finish it off. Nicely go one by one, signpost. Now I've done a lot with you, so by now you should be getting the hang of it and you should be on the same track as I'm doing these speaking cards, right? So, moving on, speaking part 3. Now remember, part 1 does not have to be furniture, and then 2 and 3, all the topics will not be on furniture, right? I'm just picking the topics as I told you and giving you an understanding. Okay, part 1, if you get questions around furniture, this is how it would be. But 2 and 3, they're usually connected. So if you get to explain or describe about an item of furniture or piece of furniture, then part 3 is going to be related to that. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the questions that could come up. In what situations do people in your country buy furniture? Okay, actually in our country or in Sri Lanka, people buy furniture at different points in their life. So when they get married, when they're newlywed, they buy furniture or people gift them furniture. When you get kids, sometimes you want a new piece of furniture like a cot, right? We buy furniture. When we sometimes move from one house to another and we go to our own house, which is a new, big, new, nice house, we would buy furniture. So these are some of the instances where people would buy furniture in Sri Lanka. So you start the idea, you explain it, and you round it off, right? Most people buy furniture at a few main points in their lives. Naturally, when people are getting married is one of those times. Another time is when they buy a new flat, okay? So I spoke about a house and I spoke about a few more points as well. All right, how do people decide what furniture to buy for the home or office? What factors do they consider? So, well, I think when people buy furniture, they consider a few factors. Mainly, people consider about the price, right? What is the cost of buying a piece of furniture? And they compare the price against a few competitors. The other thing that they compare is the durability. Will this last for a long time? I mean, Sri Lankans tend to buy teak furniture more or less because of the durability, right? Apart from that, they also look at the style and the design. Does it fit the interior, right? And will it match? Will it look nice? Some people also look at classy pieces of furniture and they want it to be unique pieces of furniture. So they look at customized pieces of furniture and they want to make sure that these ones are exclusively only available for them. So these are some of the factors that they might consider. For an example, I remember one of my friends, she really wanted to match everything in her house. So she brought, the different colored furniture, like the sofa had blue cushions and all of that, because she wanted to make sure everything was kind of matching in her house. So let's have a look at a sample answer. Well, they will consider what kind of furniture is needed. They will also look at which room it will go in and how much space they have. Something that I forgot, right? The women especially will think about the color and the style and what design looks best to them. I'd say price is probably the deciding point. They might like something very much, but if it's too expensive, they won't be able to buy it. All right. So also, thinking about which room and the space is another factor that you could consider. Right. In Chinese families, who usually decides what furniture to buy? So let's talk about in Sri Lankan families, who usually decides what furniture to buy for the home. I think that's quite a personal point. I mean, in most Sri Lankan families, I think the husband and the wife, or if it is in a family, the parents decide what furniture to get. But if the kids are grown up and they're also moving to a new house, I think they give the kids also a chance to decide what pieces of furniture they would like to pick and choose for their room, right? So I think that depends on the situation, family, and how old your kids are, and if you have any kids. So it would either be you who is buying the piece of furniture, either it would be your parents, or it would be someone else who is sponsoring to buy the furniture. So it would depend. Now, in the Chinese families, I think it varies from family to family. Nowadays, couples are making more decisions together. In my family, my parents even ask me what I think or like. In the past, often the men made decisions that concerned money, but some of those things are changing now. I think it has changed throughout the years, right? In the past, it was more or less the men deciding this is what we want. But with women working more and more, I think the bargaining power and decision power has equally distributed among both parties. Right. Do people in China prefer traditional or modern styles of furniture? Let's have a look at the question in terms of Sri Lanka. Do people in Sri Lanka prefer traditional or modern styles of furniture? I think that also depends on the people. Some people prefer the traditional pieces of furniture. I mean, if they like the antique ones, and if they're from a certain part of the country, some of them prefer the traditional antique kind of furniture. But if you move more towards the Colombo area and, the more commercialized areas, people tend to like more modern pieces of furniture, which is, trendy and classy, that would fit the context of today. So looking at the sample answer, that also depends on the people and the families. I don't think there is any set preference. From my experience though, I would say many younger couples prefer modern furniture. I think it goes along with other trends in our country. What I mean is that modern or foreign fashions are often more popular and interesting, especially for young people. Maybe I'm different in this way, though, because I think many pieces of traditional furniture in our country are very beautiful. They're also often made better than the modern things, right? So I think this one has a good use of language and has explained the idea nicely. All right. Next question. Have there been any recent changes in the kinds of furniture that people in China use? Let's have a look at the question in terms of Sri Lanka. Have there been any recent changes in the kinds of furniture that people in Sri Lanka use? Well, I think nowadays in Sri Lanka, people tend to buy more modern types of furniture, and it doesn't necessarily have to be antique. They like to buy things which are more durable and cheaper, so they've gone into other options which are okay. Right? So I think they still do look at the quality, but they think about the price more. So they look at things like things we made out of MDF boards, right? And even new things have come into practice, like, the folding chairs and the computer chairs, the computer tables. A variety of furniture has been introduced in the recent days. Now let's have a look at this. Well, as I said, a lot of foreign influence has come into our country, and this is affecting what people buy, including furniture. A very popular furniture store right now is IKEA. This is a store from Sweden, and its style of furniture is a big change from the recent and distant past. I don't think we have IKEA products here. I've seen it coming in and all. I mean, it is there sometimes, right, where people get it down. But I think we don't have big IKEA stores here. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any. But in the UK, definitely we do have big IKEA stores where it's do-it-yourself kind of furniture. You can go and assemble it on your own, and they've got a lot of modern types of furniture. I think that if people have the money, they may return to the quality furniture from years gone by. Overall, I think this should be one word, okay? Though the predominant style of furniture that people in China use is modern, right? So student thinks that in China they use the modern types of furniture. I also think in Sri Lanka we use the similar type, modern type of furniture. What factors should a furniture designer consider when designing a piece of furniture? So, the designer needs to think about the trend that is there in the modern days, right? And then the use of things that, they are going to use to build or come up with this piece of furniture. Is it going to be teak, MDF board, okay? And then they need to think about the durability, okay? If it doesn't last for long, people are not going to buy it. Above all of this, the pricing factor is there, right? So they should think about all of this, and who are they targeting this product or piece of furniture at, okay? Is it the low-income earners? Is it the high-income earners, right? Is it that they're targeting this at the people who are buying antique furniture? So you should know your target audience, and according to that, you would design your piece of furniture. Let's have a look at the sample answer. The use of the particular piece would be the first consideration. A designer would also have to think of the market he is targeting. This would usually indicate the cost of the finished product. This in turn will influence what materials he can use within that price range. All right, so moving on, what are the qualities of a good furniture designer, right? So I think a good furniture designer mainly needs to be creative, right? And he or she should be able to produce a piece of furniture that suits the target audience. So if it is something outdated, people would not want to buy it. So it needs to be trendy and modern sometimes. Sometimes he or she would also have to have the skill of making antique or traditional types of furniture. Apart from that, they need to have patience, because a good piece of furniture cannot be done overnight. So it takes a lot of time, a lot of patience to produce a good piece of furniture, right? Let's have a look at what the sample answer is telling you. I'd say he needs to be artistic and imaginative. At the same time, a designer also has to have quite a bit of practical sense. It's generally no use to design something that is beautiful but impossible to construct or sell in the market. Okay, I'm just adding sell there. Or maybe the designer can figure out how to build it but ends up so expensive that no one can afford it. In any design field, there are people who design something more for the art's sake. They don't really expect anyone to buy it, or they hope to find a collector to buy it as a piece of art more than as something useful, right? So the similar factors that I told you, they've put it in a different way. What kinds of housing are there in China? So let's have a look at this answer. There are many kinds of housing, just as in other countries. There are flats and houses and also villas. But of course, most people can't afford anything other than flats. That is at least the case in the cities. In the rural areas, there are many people who live in houses. But these are usually very simple houses, and these people are usually farmers. So let's have a look at this question from a Sri Lankan perspective, right? What kinds of housing are there in Sri Lanka? Usually in Sri Lanka, we tend to have more houses. But as the cities were becoming more and more urbanized, the need for flats came up in Sri Lanka, right? So flats tend to be very expensive in Sri Lanka, and not many people actually own flats. So most people in Sri Lanka own detached houses, and they are quite small. But if you go to the suburbs, which is outside Colombo, then of course there's quite a lot of land and people tend to have bigger houses. But most houses in Sri Lanka have modern facilities, and the rural area houses wouldn't have so much of facilities, but I would say they're quite up to a standard. Okay? So that's just my answer. Moving on, we're nearly coming to the end, right? How do people decide on the kind of housing they choose to live in? I don't really think people choose. It's like they don't really have a choice, okay? So because I was born in a house and I have a house, I would obviously live in a house. Some people, of course, choose. I mean, when they come into the city or when they want to have different schooling facilities for their kids, sometimes they come and they rent either apartments or flats, or they rent houses. So sometimes it's by choice, but the majority of the people, it's not their choice, it's that they end up with that option. Let's have a look at the sample answer. In reality, nice word again, I don't think most people have a lot of choices, unless they are very rich, and these people are few in numbers compared to the general population. Most decide on flats because that is all they can afford. Usually people will try to choose something as close to their workplace as possible. Unfortunately, even in that, there is not much choice, and many people still have to spend a lot of money traveling to and from work, okay? So similar kind of answer that I also gave you, but a different structure. All right, so let's have a look at the next question. For most Chinese people, what is an ideal house? So let's talk about the Sri Lankan people and let's get into a context. You could get Chinese, Indian, depending on your nationality, okay? So for most Sri Lankan people, what is an ideal house? For Sri Lankan people, what is an ideal house is that they have enough space in their house. A minimum of a 2-bed house where they have a living room, a kitchen, a dining room, and at least one washroom and a small garden. Because lots of Sri Lankans like to grow veggie and fruit, and they love to grow different types of plants. So they would always like to have a small area to do their gardening. Now let's have a look at a Chinese ideal house. I think if most Chinese people could choose any house they wanted, they would choose a private individual house rather than a flat. They'd also want something with a garden where they could have flowers and trees and even grow some vegetables. They would also want something big enough that they could have the members of their family live with them, or at least a place they could stay if they came for a visit. Okay. Moving on, how has housing changed in China? Let's have a look at it in a perspective of Sri Lanka. How has housing changed in Sri Lanka? I think throughout the years, housing has changed tremendously. where before in Sri Lanka we used to have single houses, single storied houses with big gardens. But with time it became houses where there were 2 stories or maybe 3 stories, less garden. But now with the population increasing and less space for everyone to live, now we've come up with the concept of apartments or flats where, we stack one top of the other and we don't have any garden space, but they just have a small balcony which they can use to grow anything in a pot if they want. So I think throughout the years there has been a big change in the housing. So have a look at the answer in terms of China. Nowadays, people live in flats and often these are in tall buildings if in big cities. In the past, most lived in houses, even if they were small. Some cities had courtyard houses where many family members lived together and there was a garden in the middle where they could enjoy the outdoor together. You've probably heard of these. They are interesting to foreigners. And sometimes, just to add, we see them in movies as well, okay? Or teledramas, the old houses. All right. And the last question, how will housing change in the future? I can imagine there will be more flats in the big cities, that will be in taller buildings with more modern facilities and equipment built into them. I hope though that some designers will do something to see that there are more park areas in between the buildings. I think city planners are making a big mistake by cramming in so much concrete. I feel so too. More green areas would be an important change to make in the future. All right, so I think we've had a look at housing, furniture related topics, related areas, right? So with that, we have come to the end of this lesson. So this lesson was focusing on part 1, 2 and 3, right? 3 housing was kind of related topic. Furniture, housing could probably have a link, right? That's why I've put it up there for you, right? So we've had a look at speaking part 1, 2 and 3 around the topic furniture.